From Houston, Texas, in color, a special one-hour version of Face the Nation, the first exclusive television interview with the Apollo 11 crew who returned on Thursday from the nationwide tour celebrating their historic first steps on the moon. Millions in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles turned out to greet the returning space pioneers.
That was Walter Cronkite anchoring our broadcast back on August 17th, 1969. Almost 50 years later, we are joined by NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine. Thank you and good morning.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
This is an incredible anniversary week for NASA.
It is.
The last man to walk on the moon was 1972.
Gene Cernan.
Yes. you get an A. But tell me, though, about your plans for Artemis, the plan to put humans back on the moon just 5 years from now.
That's right. So we want to go back to the moon sustainably, in other words, to stay. But we also want to keep our eye on what is President Trump's goal. What is his vision? He wants to put an American flag on Mars. So we go to the moon so that we can learn how to live and work on another world and ultimately have more access to the solar system than ever before so that we can get, no kidding, to Mars. But here's, I think, the important point about Artemis specifically. In the 1960s, we love Apollo. What an amazing program, contest of great powers, the United States of America in the Cold War, and of course, we came out on top. But I think the important thing is, in those days, all of our astronauts came from test pilots and fighter pilots, and there were no opportunities for women. Today, under the Artemis program, we have a very diverse, highly qualified astronaut corps that includes women, and Artemis, in Greek mythology, happens to be the twin sister of Apollo. So now when we go back to the moon, and she was the goddess of the moon, by the way, so now when we go back to the moon, we go with all of America, and I think that's a great message.
So the first steps in 2024 will be by a woman?
That's the goal.
A female astronaut?
Yes.
But all of this requires a rocket that's never flown, a space capsule that hasn't flown, a lunar lander that hasn't even been designed yet. Given the track record, how realistic is that 5-year timeline?
So the way I talk about this, there's two risks. There's technical risk, and then there's political risk. We would be on the moon right now if it weren't for the political risk. We would be on Mars, quite frankly, by now, had it not been for the political risk. But as you've identified, we did 6
What do you mean political risk? You mean funding?
I'm talking about funding. So in the past, in the 1990s and in the early 2000s, we made efforts to go back to the moon and onto Mars. And in each case, the program was too long. It took too long and too much money. What the president said is, in order to retire the political risk, we want to go faster. We want to go within 5 years. The vice president delivered a message at the National Space Council, and he said, we want to go back to the moon within 5 years. Then they amended the president's budget request to give us the resources necessary to make it a reality. And that's where we are.
But then the president tweeted, NASA should not be talking about going to the moon. We did that 50 years ago. We should be focused on much bigger things. Is he fully on board with what you just laid out?
100%. I talked to him after that tweet. I wanted to make sure we were in alignment. We absolutely are. He understands. And in fact, he said to me, I know we've got to go to the moon to get to Mars. But he said, what is that generational achievement that will inspire all of Americans? It's putting an American flag on Mars. He said, make sure you're committed to the flag on Mars.
You've said before you believe in science and you believe that humankind is contributing to climate change. Have you suggested some kind of major Earth initiative? What is NASA doing about the planet we are currently living on?
So what NASA's job is to study the Earth in every part of the electromagnetic spectrum. And we have been doing that. We continue to do that. And we share that data with the entire world, and we do it for free to the entire world.
And you share that with President Trump, who has been a skeptic of human contribution to climate change?
It's available to the entire world for free. It's online. Anybody can have access to it. And
Does he believe you when you lay this out to him?
So I'm one agency. There are other agencies in the federal government, EPA, NOAA, others. When I talk to the president, I'm talking about space exploration in general. But we do have a role to study the Earth, and it is changing. And the president is very committed to clean water and clean air. Know this, NASA is spending as much money on studying the Earth as we ever have. And of course, when you look at the comparison between what we're investing in studying the Earth and what others are investing, look at all of our partners on the International Space Station, 15 countries, the European Space Agency, Russia, Canada, Japan. We are spending as much as the rest of them combined.
America's rivalry with the Soviet Union helped to fuel some of the initiative 50 years ago. Do you see a scenario where either China's fueling that for the United States, or there's the chance to partner with China?
So, quite frankly, at this point, neither one of those. But you're right. Apollo was a contest of great powers. We were trying to demonstrate technological prowess, and the goal was to demonstrate that our political system and economic system was superior. And in fact, we achieved that. But know this, we're doing amazing things. We're so far ahead of China right now, it's not even a comparison. Just recently, we had the Crew Dragon attached to the International Space Station. Before that, we landed on the far side of Mars. For the 8th time in human history, we landed on Mars. The United States of America is the only country that's been able to achieve that. We're now entering orbit around Bennu for the first time in human history, doing an asteroid return mission. And then, of course, brilliant images of Pluto and that same spacecraft now 4 billion miles from Earth, giving us more science than ever before.
Thank you.
We are winning.
Thank you. And we will be watching, we hope all of you will, all this week on CBS.